Hey everyone, it's Hannah Saber from HR Images. In today's video, we'll be reviewing the Sony 50mm 1.2 G Master Lens, so stay tuned. Before we get into this review, just wanted to point out to you guys, if you haven't yet, feel free to check out my Facebook groups below. I run a portrait group and some Sony groups. There's 12 groups below, categorizing in different variety of genres to brand of camera as well. So if you haven't yet, feel free to check that out. I do get very active on those groups where I post a lot of my work, as well as help anyone who has any questions regarding any gear or so on. I've had the 50mm 1.2 lens for quite some time now, and this review, I'm not basing it like other photographers where they are just gonna go out and just get the sample shots what they need just for the review. This review for this lens is based on a realistic approach where I've actually used this lens on jobs such as weddings, christenings, even portrait shoots for clients. One thing I liked about this lens is how small and compact it is. If you compare it to the 35 1.4 GM lens, it isn't that much bigger than it. The only difference is it is fatter than a 35. That is due to the 1.2 f-stop for the glass, which is the reason why it is fatter than the f1.4. But it is actually pretty light for a 1.2 piece of glass as well. It is it's a bit heavier than obviously the 35 1.4. What Sony has also implemented in their this 50mm along with all the other G Master lenses is the aperture ring. Now I do love the aperture ring because when you're shooting weddings and events and you need to change the f-stop, so if you're in a low light scenario where you want to shoot wide open, instead of fiddling with the camera and adjusting settings, you can do it through the aperture ring. Now, why I like use the aperture ring opposed to using the camera is because as I'm changing the aperture, I can also do the shutter at the same time. It is a lot quicker for me, and being on the go, the aperture ring is for me a godsend. It helps with a faster change of settings during your events or weddings, because obviously in different scenarios, you might want to shoot f4.5 if you're shooting groups, or if you're shooting the bride and groom and it's low light, you want wide open, you can change to 1.2. So you can actually just sort of sit there and just adjust the aperture ring. For videographers as well, this lens is similar to the 35. You do have the declick button. So at the moment it is on, so you can hear the noise. But then if you're doing videos, you don't want to hear that noise in your videos, you can actually switch that off, so it's actually very smooth. With the autofocus in this 50mm lens, as I'm going through reviewing this lens, I'll be putting up some image samples showing you what I've captured with this lens and what I think about it at the same time. With the 50mm, the autofocus is very quick. Shooting christenings, especially when you're shooting a newborn, for example, these images I'll be showing, kids don't sit still. You tell them to sit still, they're not going to sit still. And they're at that age where they want to explore, they want to move around. And with this lens, I've been shooting the 50mm during this christening and just being able to capture the images, laying the focus very quick. The eye autofocus implementing with the Sony cameras is just amazing. It's very fast and very precise. Shot here, I had the newborn in front of the parents, and just happened spontaneously as I was prepping up. The baby decided to look our way and smiled at one of the relatives behind me. I quickly snapped the shot. Having the IAF with AFC on this camera for the 50mm and shooting out wide, it's always catching the eyes, and I have purposely wanted the baby's eyes more in focus, catching more the baby, but at the same time having the parents in that slight shallow depth of field, just to be able to have that emotion, that raw emotions. And for me, having lenses to go with my workflow is very important to me. A lot of people ask me, why don't I shoot with a zoom lens? Personally, I prefer primes. I have a 35, 24, 35, 50, and 85, and a 135. Each lens will be used depending on my situation. For example, like this wedding, I could not use an 85 I have had a 35, which is very wide, but I couldn't get so close to the couple without disrupting the wedding. And a 50mm was perfect. We only had it's the place where the couple had got married was on a balcony from a hotel, which is not even as big as this room I'm in. And I was by the door and it wasn't too far, and the 50mm on my A1 worked really well capturing these images. Now if I wanted to get uptight, I always switched my A1 to crop mode, which is why I use the A1 as a primary camera, because I can always have one lens, but in crop mode using it into two different lenses, so becoming 85 equivalent to get that nice tight shot without getting in the way. If I had used the 85mm, I wouldn't have been able to get these shots like I would have with the 50mm. For the 50mm, I had decided to use it for street photography, walking around on the streets of Sydney CBD and capturing these images. I gotta say, I do love the 50mm, using it for street photography. I generally use the 35, or I would be using mainly the 40mm. I do like to experiment with the telephoto lenses, which I have used at 135, but having a 50mm, you're kind of getting in that between spot of a 35 and an 85 and being able to walk around, not being able to get so close to your subject, but just capturing those raw emotions that you see in the street. Capturing the beauty of the city with this lens, giving you that wide view, and you can get some nice close-up shots. Using this lens, I have not noticed any chromatic aberration on this lens. For video work, it is very quick and fast for the autofocus, especially with this lens. Now, I haven't got any samples of videos. I didn't get a chance to do any videos with this lens, but just having a quick play with it, I was pretty impressed in how well this lens does for video as well. I don't just generally shoot with this outside or weddings. I also do it in the studio. I have a home studio where my room is very small. I don't have much room to use a 135 as I would like to, or an 85. 50mm has been always perfect focal length for my studio work. So here are a couple of shots that I've captured in studio. Settings is around f8 for these two shots. This lens is sharp even at f8. Wide open, it is sharp. It's sharp in the center, and you've got that nice buttery bokeh. But using in studio, I really love using this lens in studio, and I've been using it a lot more in my studio due to the lack of space and giving me a sharp result. Now the bokeh on this lens is amazing. 1.2 f-stop, giving you that nice buttery soft bokeh. Obviously, at a distance, you're not going to get as much as the bokeh as you would as a 135. But in saying that, just having that nice distance from your subject, you're still getting that nice bokeh at the background. Looking at these full body shots I've done of some models that I've worked with, you're still getting that nice buttery bokeh at the background. If you did wanted to, this lens can get you very close to your subject and increasing the bokeh in the background, giving you that nice buttery soft look at the background, which is from example, this image is of the leaves that I was capturing on the floor, getting very close, having that nice soft bokeh at the background and the foreground, and just having that red leaf in focus. Another one example, this is a cyberpunk photo shoot I did. I went close to my subject in getting a half body shot and having that background blurred out, just having her in the focus with the two Nanlite Pava Tubes 15Cs. It is very good in terms, it is a versatile lens, especially when you're doing weddings. Going close up, getting the ring shots, the details in this lens that you can capture is really good. You don't, like for example, this ring shot, I didn't have my macro lens on me. I didn't have the time to change my macro lens. So I went in close as possible to with the 50mm, capturing the detail of the ring and the close-up of the couple's hands. Another example here is of the bokeh and how sharp it is. Now this image here that of the male model, I've only used those two LED light bracelets to light his face. Shooting at f1.2 in extreme low light, the lens performed really well. Just having the street lights in the background and the rain on the glass that he was leaning on, causing that bokeh look in the bokeh balls on the glass. This 50mm has not disappointed. To be honest, I haven't been able to fault this lens, and I will put it hands down. I would say straight up, I am not a fan of a 50mm focal length. I have not stopped using this lens, this focal length, ever since getting it due to the 1.2 aperture. I love the 1.2 to be able to get creative shots. It is a lens that I will recommend if adding into your arsenal. If you want the 50mm, people have asked me what, comparing the 50 1.4 Zeiss to this, the 1.2, you're getting a faster focus. Compact lens, lightweight, and f1.2 at this compact is just insane, and Sony's really outdone themselves with this lens. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that quick review on the 50mm 1.2 G Master lens. If you did, please give it a like, share, and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Do check out the link below. I have listed all the gear that I have used in this video. Any purchases you use on those links, it will help support this channel to be able to continue being able to give you more gear reviews and tutorials in this YouTube channel. Other than that, I hope you guys have a good night, and I'll catch you next video. See you guys.